Yay! I'm so glad
Wow.
we're finally doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, good.
yeah. It was a year ago, I think. I was
Wow.
reaching out to find the people, especially in Ontario, who were doing just aligned with the health at every size and body positive movement. And there you were dancing up on Instagram. And every time I see you, I smile and I want to move. And I just love watching you. And so I thought, yeah, you are a perfect person to bring in. And then, of course, COVID hit and George Floyd's death happened, and a whole lot of stuff got brought forward. And so I was really grateful that I had you in my feed because I lived in I do live, it's not lived, I live in an overwhelmingly whitewashed world and have my whole life. So thank you for bringing that into my space too, because I've really enjoyed reading your pieces.
I
Yeah.
never know who sees what. And it's so weird. I often, especially when it comes to race and stuff, I often feel a little bit of like, oh my gosh, like what if my employer sees this? Luckily, I work for an employer where it's like they are aligned with my views, but you never know what people might take as like offensive or be incendiary or whatever, you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. No, it's been quite the year. My goodness. So, welcome and thank you again for taking the time. I know I thanked you before I started recording, but I want to do it
thank you
again.
for having me. Thank you for having me.
It's so,
Honestly, I'm. It's really cool to see a naturopathic physician who is Hayes because I think not all of them are like. No, mine wasn't. I don't, I think she was intuitive eating, but I'm not sure if she was truly like Hayes. But
yeah.
so
Yeah, I could do a whole series on diet culture and naturopathic medicine. It's pretty wild. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But no, it's exciting and it's just fun to find other people. So you're in Toronto
yeah,
and your fitness business is your side gig.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I would love to know how did you get into doing fitness and being like you're so inspiring and you do so much fun stuff online, and yeah, I'd love to know how you got into it.
Um, I don't even know where to start. Um, such a big question. It feels like I would have to tell you my whole life story. So in a nutshell, so I was always the bigger kid. I was always the bigger kid in school growing up. And I got, diet culture and body shaming from everywhere. So from outside, but also from home. So there was no filter or anything. And I never saw myself as athletic. So much so that I kind of felt like, okay, I have to pour into academics because don't got looks going for me. So I'm going to have to like get straight A's and that's how I'm going to make my way through the world. And so that's what I did. I focused on academics, and anytime like my lowest mark would always be in phys ed, and I get a B for like effort because like I showed up and I was there, but that was never my highest grade. And I just remember huffing and puffing when we were doing like the 5 km runs in gym class and everything like that. So the fact that I'm a fitness instructor today is it's the complete opposite. Like if you had told me while I was running in grade 9 phys ed that I would be a fitness instructor, I'd be like, what are you smoking? I want some of that too, right? Like, so it's so wild, but it's so weird. On one hand, I'm like it's wild, but on another hand, it's predictable, right? Because as what we know with people's lives, like I think it was Rick Warren who said like your pain and your passion is going to lead you to your purpose, right? So if I think of some of my deepest sore spots and pains, that would be my weight and what people have said about it and what people have attributed to it. And my passion has always been health. I thought about becoming a doctor when I was really young. And I remember the first time I went to see a naturopathic physician in Montreal, she was kind of blown away by like what I knew about PCOS and what I knew about Hashimoto's and and she was kind of like, you're really into this. Have you thought about naturopathic medicine? But at that point, I was like halfway through law school. So I was like, I don't have the energy for another 4 years of school, 4 years plus, because I'd have to
Yeah.
take biology and stuff. So Yeah, that's so. I mean, it was really when I moved to Montreal, like when I finally had my life in my own hands and away from family, and like I have a different context that I really was like I could take my health into my own hands. Like this was the first time I could be cooking for myself. I'm living by myself. Like I truly feel like an adult, and I have to make adult choices when it comes to my body. And one of those choices was like I probably should go to the gym because not only does diabetes run in my family, and so making sure that I'm at a healthy weight and have my blood sugar regulated is something I will always have to keep an eye out for. But it was also like I need to have a stress reliever, and I want to like be more physically fit. When I was an undergrad at York University, Glendon campus, shout out, I was like I would go to the gym between classes, and I wanted to keep that up when I moved to Montreal. So that's what I was doing. By that time I had already been more familiar with the gym because I went for a gym orientation. Like when we're talking about where I started in fitness, we're talking about going into gyms and not knowing what the machines do. Right.
Yeah.
So I was one of those people who signed up for an orientation so I could know like what is a treadmill and like what is elliptical and like what is a lat pull down. And it's through doing that and being physical that physically active that I realized, okay, I really like this. And I got to the point where, so I had to obviously like graduate. And so when you graduate, you no longer have your gym membership. So I had to go to another gym. So I went to NFG Calgio in Montreal. And I remember peeking in one day when I was going to the gym and I saw this really, really cool class with like strobe lights and like the lights were off and people were dancing. And I was like, this seems kind of cool. I wonder what this is. So I looked at the front door and it said Zumba. And I had heard of Zumba before, but I never really knew what it was. So I told myself I would try it out, the next class. So I tried it out and I left and I was like, oh my gosh, that was really, really fun. And I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And even when they closed that location of the gym and our membership was transferred to another gym downtown, but just kind of further away, I kept going and I kept going religiously. And I would walk because I was, student loans. But I also was like, it was summer. I liked walking downtown Montreal, but I was like, it was during one of those 40-minute walks to Zumba that I thought to myself, wow, you're kind of really dedicated to this. You know, maybe you should start thinking about becoming an instructor, or like if you're gonna be there, you might as well get paid for it, right? um and also what helped during that thought process too is I had an instructor at the time who would like she'd always be like, I don't want to be up here dancing by myself, so during the class any one of you could come join me. And obviously I was like, that's not me. I would always find myself in the back of the class, as far back as possible. And one day she pointed to me because I guess I was really into the song. She's like, you come up. And so I was like, okay, I could lead the song with her. And that was the first time I had an experience of like doing a Zumba class in front of an audience. And I realized, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I also got feedback from other people in class where they'd be like, we couldn't see the instructor, so we were just watching you the whole time because you're so good. So hearing affirmation like that got me thinking, okay, maybe I could be a Zumba instructor. I know this is a very long story. I told you it's my life history. So I signed up for the training and I had a lot of misgivings about it because the training to be a Zumba instructor is $350 US. And I don't think Americans understand. Exactly. Like that makes sense. That it makes a difference. So I was like, am I going to really invest, over $400 in myself and nobody may ever hire me? And remember, this is not my educational background. By the time I did this, had moved to Ottawa to do my articling. I was still thinking that I was going to be a lawyer, and I was still on that practice that track. I thought I was going to practice, and I thought I was going to get licensed and everything. And so it was like, this is like a little fun thing, a little fun project that I'm doing. So, maybe I'll make some money, help me pay off some student loans and help me de-stress after articles. But it ended up being bigger. And I mean, I got licensed. I was the largest person in my class. I mean, I look at stuff like that, especially when you have a larger body. You always go into spaces and notice like, who's smaller? Do I fit in here? That kind of, and there's a little bit of a self-consciousness too. Like you wonder if people are looking at you, or I guess for me, I'm always feeling like people probably are paying more attention to me than they actually are. Like I have to make sure that I could do everything that they could do, or else they're going to be like, see, she's fat and she's like, it'll confirm kind of the stereotypes. And that's not to say that this is what they're saying or what's going on in their head, but for me, that's the perception I have. So all that to say, I got licensed, I did it. The first thing I was hired as was an aqua Zumba instructor. So after I got my Zumba license, at the training they said, aqua Zumba's coming up, that licensing, so you should sign up for it. So I was like, okay, let me sign up for that. And they were saying like you could go like teach in pools and whatever. And at that training, I had a friend say, if you get your aqua Zumba license, you could go teach in the Caribbean for free at resorts and blah, blah, blah. So that was like opened up my eyes. So it's really snowballed from there. I got hired to be an aqua Zumba instructor at the YMCA in Ottawa because they didn't have a position to be a Zumba instructor. There's so many Zumba instructors, so those positions are few and far between and hard to come by. But as an aqua Zumba instructor, it's a specialty, so they have less to choose from. So I got in from there, and then I finally got to teach my own Zumba class. But of course, in teaching your own Zumba class, you need to have a fitness and certification, fitness instructor certification, because it's not enough to just do, Zumba licensing is just a 1 day, 6-hour thing. So I got that. And then if I'm doing aqua Zumba, it made sense to get an aqua fitness certification as well. So I did that. Well, now if I have an aqua fitness certification, they also have an aqua kickboxing certification. And I need continuing education credits. So I did that. And it's like, okay, now that you have aqua Zumba and Zumba, now they have this new high impact, high intensity interval training called Strong Nation. And you also still need CECs for CanFit Pro. So you might as well do. So it really was a snowball effect, getting one after the other. And I found that I really loved it. And I mean, anytime you do something in your life and you constantly get affirmation from different people, different walks of life in terms of what you're doing, you have to pay attention, regardless of if it's your educational background or if it is what you had envisioned doing, right? So after each class, and I've been teaching for 4 years now, I think after 90% of my classes, I at least get one person who comes to me, whether it's now in the chat on Zoom or through Instagram, or when we were teaching in person, who's like, oh my gosh, that was great. You are such a great instructor. And so when you hear that, over and over again during a week, over and over again, over years, you have to pay attention to that and say to yourself, okay, there's something here. And I have to just kind of lean into it and follow it through. So that's like my 15-minute life story.
That, I made a point of writing down what people had asked in the Facebook group, just in case, of course, the Facebook Live wouldn't work, which it isn't. So here we go. Thank goodness I wrote it down. And the number 2 thing was getting started. When I asked them, like, what do you struggle with around fitness? Getting started was number 2. They got the number 2 votes. And so when you think back to like when you're in university, it was like diabetes prevention that was your primary motivator.
Diabetes prevention and having fun. And also living in Montreal was low-key depressing. Like, and only in retrospect. And it wasn't so much Montreal. I think it was my course of studies. Law school was as dry as eating white flour, right? Like, it was really dry. And so I needed something to counterbalance against the dryness of law school. And that's where Zumba came in. So I would say for those people who are like, I want to get started on something, what helped, because I told you, like, I didn't have a good relationship with movement before, right?
Yes.
So what helped me was to redefine that relationship and to do things that are fun. Yeah. Just anything that's fun. Zumba for me was fun. It is fun. Of all the things I teach, it's the thing that I love teaching the most because it's fun, right? So that was my foray into fitness again, and to do it more regularly was like, I like to dance. So I think people should think to themselves, okay, like, what do you like to do? Like, Zumba is great for people who already are the kind of people who are humming along when they're washing dishes. Zumba is great for people who know Spanish or like, salsa, or have some kind of familiarity with Latin American countries. Zumba is really good for those people who just love music in general, right? Like, who just have a huge swath of musical repertoire. Like they know stuff from the 70s to like Cardi B to Lizzo, you know? So if you're that kind of person, think about a Zumba class. And I know Zumba classes could be intimidating, but you know, it just depends on finding the right class. So the first step I would say is do what you love. Like what piques your interest when you hear about movement? Like you mentioned skiing, right?
Mm-mm,
Like
yes.
I think all of us, there are certain activities we've heard of and some have stood out to us more than others. And we need to explore that, I think.
Yeah, it's so funny as you were talking about, you know, you finding Zumba and that dedication to it. And it was in law school. And it was when I was in naturopathic college that I started doing karate.
Yeah.
And it was the same deal. I was like, if I don't move, I'm gonna lose my mind. And I knew I didn't want to go to a gym and like that wasn't really, it didn't interest me. There was no motivation to go and do that. And karate, I think, similarly to what you were like, it was fun, and I never knew what we were going to do. It was different every time, and I got to progress through the stages of things, and yeah, and I forgot about that until right now. Because I haven't done karate in so long. When we moved away, I never went back to it. But yeah, and that's skiing. Like I don't have to, you know, I reorganize my day because it's sunny today. I'm going skiing. As soon as you and
Yeah.
I are done, driving up the hill to get my kid from school and away we go.
Yeah.
You know, I can't wait to go and do it. And I guess if I'm hearing you correctly, that's the thing you're looking for. So think outside the typical box of exercise.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when I say think outside of the box of exercise, I think sometimes a lot of people think like the things that they do don't count or it has to count. Like we live in a very Fitbit, you know, Garmin watch world where it's like if I'm not getting my 10,000 steps, it didn't count, right? But like you might be somebody who likes to clean. So when I say like finding something that you like to do, I mean if you're the kind of person who likes put on, like that's what I do on my Sundays. I put on music, I put on Elton John. Yes, I'm in my 30s and I like Elton John. So I'll put on like Elton John or something and just like okay, that's when I'm rearranging stuff, vacuuming, like we both know that you break a sweat from that kind of stuff. So when I say find movement that you enjoy, it's literally any type of movement. Some people only like walking. That's great, right? So walk, right?
I always laugh on my intake forms. You know, it says, do you move regularly? And people say no. And then I always ask them, walk me through your day, like from the time you get up to the like, when do you eat? What do you do? And then I find out they walk the dog for 40 minutes twice a day. Like, you're moving, like that is movement. Like,
Movement.
tick.
And if you have a dog, like the dogs I see in my area, they're not walking slowly. They keep you walking at a pretty brisk pace,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So any
Yeah.
type of movement.
And I think that's something that the fitness world has really taken away from us, you know, is being able to just feel good moving and it not having to be this particular regime. And it's gotten really hard lately, you know, with sort of that functional movement CrossFit stuff that's come forward. It's like if you're not throwing sledgehammers and flipping tires and doing like climbing up ropes, then it doesn't count. And then there's this sense of, I don't know, just like why bother, you know? And
Exactly.
it's heartbreaking because it's really I interviewed Louise Green a few years ago,
Yeah.
and she was talking about like basically like trauma that was induced from exercise, and whether that's an emotional thing that, you know, you go to a class and someone is a complete ass and makes fun of you or says something totally inappropriate, or the way that I used to do it to myself, like I would push so hard it would hurt myself. So then of course I have a natural like
Aversion.
resistance
Yeah.
to stepping into something because it could hurt me. And I was just telling someone yesterday about my brief stint in CrossFit, and I loved the sensation of feeling strong, and the community wasn't as hardcore as some of the others, but I didn't honor my body. I didn't listen to my body, and I was like, I couldn't sit. I would fall into chairs. I would fall onto the toilet, and thank God I would line it up properly because my legs would literally give out the next day. I'd just thump, you know? And people were like, way to go. I got so much praise for hurting myself. And I look back on it, I think, my God, what have we done? What have we done? That why would we encourage someone to do harm? I couldn't sit on the toilet properly for a week. How is that healthy behavior?
That's a sign.
Right? I have never skied so hard that I couldn't sit down the next day.
Exactly. Maybe you have some soreness, because soreness is normal, but like
that's like a, oh, that was good to be out
yeah,
feeling though.
not like I'm unable to carry out with the functions of my day for a week.
Exactly.
That's a little extreme.
So then the number one thing that they said was sticking to it. And I feel like that's just an extension of the getting started conversation, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If you like that movement, you will stick to it because it feels good. Like the way our bodies are created is there's sense, there's method to the madness, right? Like endorphins are like kind of your reward hormones to be like, this feels good. And I think in people's lives, you have to pay attention to what feels good. The way the body's created is it rewards us for doing things that feel good and so that we could do them again. Sex, food, movement,
Yep.
things that happen to be things that are good and healthy for us, and studies have shown that. So, and that's the incentive to keep doing it. So you have that endorphin rush, you're like, yo, I feel great, I feel strong, I feel better. I'm sure you're the same way too. Like you've maybe gone through a lot of patience for the day, and then you just go move and do something and you feel like a whole new person. I could be walking with like a hangover because I hadn't slept well the night before, and then I'll teach a class in the evening. It's like, oh, I feel like I could do life again. It's 8 p.m. but I feel like I could do life again, right?
Yeah.
So if you find something that you like, that will hopefully help you get started. And if you truly like it, you will continue. Another way to help you continue is to unhinge yourself from like the sense of like punishment and can it count. It's about movement for enjoyment. And if enjoyment is what you're doing, and you're trying to cultivate a life of pleasure and enjoyment, then that itself is the incentive to continue. But if you, I think that's what was key for me. If I move because I need to lose weight, as you know, having PCOS, weight loss is quite difficult. So it doesn't take much for me to get, discouraged because the needle on the scale didn't move. So that would keep me from movement, right? Because it's like, okay, what's the point? I've been exercising, I've been going to class every day. And, I not only did I not lose weight, I'm up 5 pounds, and that will keep you from moving. So I try not to think of it that way. That's why I haven't stepped on a scale in years, right? Because for me, it was key for like, okay, I'm going to forget about that. I'm going to move because it feels good. I'm going to move because I know, empirically that'll help with blood sugar regulation. I'm going to move because, it'll help me lower my testosterone and free androgens and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to hinge it to any one specific outcome, right? If my clothes feeling looser happens, it just happens, but that was never the goal. The goal was enjoyment.
And I think that's especially this time of year, which is part of what just motivated me to finally say, I mean, I wanted to get to know you anyways, but this time of year was, we're all going to get caught in that, and we have the the news reporting the quarantine 15 and all the scary things with that superimposed upon all of the new year, new you bullshit. And, we know that it doesn't work. And the only way that a healthy lifestyle change is going to improve your health outcomes is if you actually do it for a long time.
Forever until you die.
Right. And but we still hinge somehow on this idea that like we're going to get fit and then we don't have to do it anymore. So it's okay that we don't like it because we're not doing it forever. And that is really the like fun, like as soon as you start to hear that, like I can just tough this out, stop. It's the same with any dietary changes, right? Like if you're eating something that you don't like or you're feeling so deprived, you will not keep doing it. Like I promise.
You won't. There's a reason why people will go on vacation and be like, oh my gosh, I ate so much on vacation. It's because for once in your life, you you took off the limits and you let yourself enjoy yourself. And that's why you're like, oh, I binge so much. But if you lived a life in general where you had cake regularly throughout your week, then when you go on vacation, it's not a whole like, oh my gosh, I just let myself go. It's just like, oh, I ate more food. I ate yummier food, different food. It's not such a big departure from your normal day to day. So I've always, and I think you and I are on the same page when it comes to diet culture and sustainability, right? Yeah. Like anything you do has to be sustainable. And again, this also kind of links back to like, how do I get started? How do I continue? You're going to continue and get started, and it's going to be sustainable if you like the activity. Like, I feel like, I don't think people understand. Like, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but honestly, that's what's at the heart of it. If you enjoy some sex, you will continue it. Right? It will be sustainable. You're not thinking to yourself, oh, I have to have sex again for the next 50 years. It's like, it's, you know, it continues, right? Yes. So same thing with like food. No, but if you eat food that you enjoy, you're not thinking, oh, I have to eat cake for like the next 60 years. No, you're like, I look forward to the next time I eat cake. Right? If you like something. And same thing with movement. If you like it, and if it's going to be sustainable for you, right? And when I say if you like it, it's also like you like it because how it makes you feel, but you also like it because it fits within your day, right? So like walking, you like walking because it doesn't make you all sweaty. That's cool. You like walking because you could embed it in your day. You could walk to the grocery store. You could walk your dog. You could, you know, you could embed walking. You could walk on the treadmill. That's why you like it. Okay, so because you found something that you like, and you like it because it fits, then it's going to be sustainable for you over time, right?
I just finished, I'm relaunching a program in January that I've run a few times. But as I, continue to do my work, I fine tune things. And I finally figured out the basis of all the work I do is on 3 S's. It has to be sensible, it has to be satisfying, and it has to be sustainable. And if it doesn't tick those boxes, it's not going to last long term, which means it is not going to have any significant impact on your health, other than it could have negative impact because of the emotional and psychological impacts. Although in fairness, there's lots of negative physical impacts from some of the crazy diet stuff that people are, oh my God, the disordered behavior that we are normalizing in our society right now. Just like, I want to climb on a soapbox and scream. But I will not take over your interview with that soapbox.
No, and I think I do hope that at some point, you do get on the soapbox and scream. Yes. No, but it makes no sense. Anytime I go online and I hear people talking about quarantine 15, or I hear people pushing a diet, no matter what diet, whether it's detox, whatever, I'm just like, this makes no sense. This makes no sense. Like, my mother was the Slim Fast generation and the Weight Watcher generation.
Oh, yes. That was my gateway diet.
But did it work though? Like, I feel like those memes, like, did it work? It didn't work. Like, I feel like I remember one time opening the cupboard a few years ago and still seeing the Slim Fast container on the top shelf. And we're talking about 30-year-old Slim Fast. Like, it didn't work, right? And it didn't work for a reason. So like, not to demonize any diet in particular, but right now the whole craze right now is around keto. And I don't actually have anything against keto per se, right? Many people have lost weight from keto. Many people have said their periods have come back from keto, those who are worried about PCOS, that kind of stuff. And if those are the results you're getting, I can't knock it. My whole thing is, can you do keto for the next 60 years? Because I don't know if we have enough longitudinal research to tell us that we could, right? So
I've been looking for it. We don't.
So, okay. So like, for me, I want to know, what are the effects of long-term ketosis? Like, it's ketosis, right? Yeah, ketosis for like 60 years. Like, I think there's a reason why our body doesn't run on the backup system, right? Like, just like a car. Exactly. So that, right? It's that
kind of great analogy, Simone. I like that.
Right? It's that type of thinking. So I'm like, you could do, if you're able to do keto and there are no long-term effects and you're 80 years old and you're still taking quite well, then it's like, okay, cool, keto. Like, I can't knock anything. Same thing with being vegan. I used to be vegan. So if anybody thinks I'm being like, you know, picking on a certain diet, like I used to be vegan. There are lifelong vegans, and we do have longitudinal studies on veganism. I will also say that veganism doesn't work for everybody. I will also say that a lot of vegans are deficient in B12. Like they are not without their consequences, right? Depending on your diet. So
And that's why, I mean, that's why I was so drawn to intuitive eating. I mean, one, because like it just it just made sense, you know, in that I was like, oh, but there was enough research for my doctor hat to be happy. And ultimately, it's about you finding your best diet because you listen to your body and it tells you whether this works for you or not. You know, you and I are both dairy free, part of the dairy free family. I just actually was thinking of you as I was making this mac and cheese that's dairy free. It's delicious. And
send the recipe because
I
my mac
will.
and cheese tastes nasty.
It's so good. Uh, it's like a
Like,
pumpkin base. Like it's so
okay.
good. But I eat that way not because I'm scared that dairy is going to make me fat or give me cancer. It's because when I eat dairy, my body says, please don't do that.
Exactly.
That's the only reason I don't eat dairy regularly. Occasionally, I will definitely have it and suffer the consequences
Whew.
because it feels like a fair exchange sometimes. Like when I'm in Hawaii and there's hula pie there, totally having it. Um, and it's
Yeah.
okay, right? But it's interesting with the whole, I got stuck in PubMed for about 3 hours the other day. As it happens, as I start reading research and then it tells you what other, anyways, down the rabbit hole I
Yeah.
went. And
Yep.
I was in the low carb diet rabbit hole. And I didn't know until 2 days ago how much longitudinal research there is suggesting that it's actually correlated with increased mortality rates. I'm not seeing that being published around in the media right now. And like, that's really curious, you know? So you know, I've thrown them into my pocket and I'm going to dissect them a little bit more before I climb on any soapbox. But I've said for years, like, you tell me how you want to eat, I'll find you research that says yes, it's the right way to go, and I'll find you research that says absolutely no way you shouldn't do it. Like,
Exactly.
it's nutritional research is far too young, and the studies are not, they're not good enough for us to be doing population based dietary changes. Like, the evidence is just not there for that. And my profession is one of the worst at promoting these population based changes on shady research. Like, it's questionable at best and dangerous at worst. Um, Another tangent soapbox I could climb
No,
on.
my first naturopath, and I want to say naturopathic physician because there's so many different naturopaths, and it's really important that people know. It's one of my gripes, especially in Quebec, which is unregulated, and
Yes.
everybody's a naturopath, right? So
Yeah.
my first
Here we're
naturopath,
regulated
we're
and
here,
we're
yeah.
called naturopathic doctors here.
So my first naturopathic doctor, she said that I should try paleo, right,
Yeah.
for PCOS because
Mm-hmm.
that has been shown, at least with some studies and anecdotally, to be helpful. That never sat well with me, especially since at the time I was vegan, you know.
That's a big about face.
So like a little, you know, honestly, the what I don't, it's outside of my scope of practice for now to tell people about nutrition and meal plans. I'm working on another certification on healthy eating. Even then, the name of the certification is healthy eating and weight loss. I will go back to weight loss again, but and taking that certification was not necessarily a pleasant experience, but because of kind of my philosophy. But I will say that I think it's fair to say, and I think the only health advice I could give that's safe, that I can't get sued by, is like, eat greens, eat leafy greens, because it would seem to me that no matter what diet, whether it's Atkins or keto or paleo or vegan, they'll have one thing in common with all of them, which are leafy greens. Leafy greens seems to be okay across the board.
The one
So
thing that everyone agrees on. When in doubt, find
everybody else
some green.
disagrees on meat. Everybody else disagrees on fruits. People disagree on milk, but everybody agrees on kale and broccoli for the most part. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No,
but the whole,
it's a
yeah,
wild and crazy world. And that's again why I found intuitive eating on my own recovery process. And then I was like, yeah, I need to do the certification. And then realized I was still way too disordered to be actually going through the process. So then had to find my people and get myself well first, and then started to actually work with it a bit, and then finally was like, I should just get certified so I can use their stuff, because I really want to give the respect to Elise Reich and Evelyn Tribole, because they've first published intuitive eating in 1995, and it has been researched so many different times. And you know part of why I'm just so drawn to that philosophy is because it's just like your philosophy towards movement, right? You find what fits for your life, what you find enjoyable, so that you can do it long term. And ultimately, anytime we're talking about health in any way, shape, or form, that's fundamentally what has to be there. Yeah.
And I guess the only reason why it was published in 1995, but I feel like it's only coming into regular parlance now as the body positive movement has started to really make some large impacts. But I think at the heart of it, and why it wasn't readily adopted, was this whole weight loss thing,
Yeah.
because you could eat intuitively, but people probably, unfortunately, are only interested in eating intuitively if they'll lose weight. Like, we have a society, right, that's really hell bent on like, how can I lose weight?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
by any means necessary,
Yes.
right? Like,
Fortunately,
I have
I
6
went to
weeks
some
until my
pretty
wedding.
extreme.
Yeah, yeah, there's pretty
Yeah,
extreme.
I did some awful things to my body. Thank you, body. It it had my back the whole time I was treating it like crap. Yeah, it is, and it's this time of year is especially difficult for people to understand that health and weight are not synonymous. No matter how hard as a society we have tried to shame people into making their health a priority, or this concept even that health is within our control. A very small percentage of your health is within control of things that you have control over. And yet we lose sight of that so easily. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sympathetic though, in terms of, so I had two thoughts. I'll go with the first thought about being sympathetic. I'm sympathetic because I have not gone on a diet, so I could I could I can listen to my hunger cues and know that they haven't been skewed or they haven't been abused. I know that they're fairly reliable. So I never have to worry about binge eating. That's never been my thing. I haven't really had to worry about emotional eating. There are a few times in my life I eat when I'm bored, but for the most part, my relationship with food is one that I think is a healthy one,
So
because I haven't been on that dieting. But I do know there are individuals who struggle with binge eating, and I do know there are individuals who struggle with, the leptin and the hormones to tell them to stop eating. They don't have it, or it's missing, or whatever the case may be. So on one hand, I say intuitive eating and I believe in it, but I also do understand that there are people who are like, if I eat, I will keep on eating. And I know intuitive eating has an answer to those concerns, but I just want to acknowledge that it's all well and good for me to say, listen to your body and eat. Because the fact of the matter is, intuitive eating, you might actually lose weight because you're actually giving your body what it says it needs, but you could also gain weight, or you could stay the same, but you could also gain weight. The gaining of weight is not bad. I know a lot of the Instagram people I've been following who are in this area say like that's probably the weight that you needed to gain. But I can also imagine that there are people in that category where it's like that is weight that they really don't know if they could have dealt with if they're dealing with joint issues, diabetes, that kind of stuff. And it's those people that I sometimes struggle with in terms of like, I I I get it. Like, you didn't the weight is not something that you wanted to get. You were having a hard time moving as it was, and now you've gained weight because you're doing this so-called healthy thing called intuitive eating. It's like, where does it leave me now? So that's what I struggle with.
And I think that
Yeah.
brings up such a perfect point, though, and it's that the principles of intuitive eating are based on the assumption that if that you're not sort of too far gone into disordered eating and diet culture. And that was where, like, I realized for my own self that I had to do my own work, because I had no idea what hunger felt like until I was like dysfunctionally starving, and then I would eat all of the food. And so I had to have a plan of eating. I had to have a structure. I had to have meal times that I committed to eating, and that felt diety to me. And so when I talk to people about that, sometimes they're like, well, that's not intuitive eating. I'm like, yeah, it is, because I broke my hunger meter.
Exactly.
And so I needed a little bit more structure to allow me to move through the principles. So there's these beautiful nuances to intuitive eating that get lost in they get lost in the shuffle, I think, you know. And like, even if when you read the Make Peace with Food, it's principle number 3, they're super clear. Like, you don't ditch all the diet rules right off the top. The whole point is to build trust. And so you can have the structure that gives you the freedom. And that piece is what's often missing. And, you know, for someone like you who doesn't have all the damage from diet culture, it's easy to step into an intuitive eating mindset. For people like me, not even close. And so then it's how do you find that structure without turning it down? And that's most of the work that I do, is with people who are like, okay, I like this idea, I got the book, I'm working on it, but it's not working for me. How do I do this? And it's just such a beautiful process to watch people through it. And yeah, anyways. So what did we miss? Anything? We talked about sticking to it and getting started. It's no fun. So everything so far has been answered with, just keep playing until you find something that you enjoy, and don't get totally caught up in whether or not you sweat, how long you did it, and whether it fits into the right ticky box. If you're moving your body, it totally counts. Great.
I guess I will add to that, because I had the same conversation with somebody at work in the before times, back when we were actually in our office.
Yeah.
And I said the same thing to her: just find something that you enjoy. And she's like, I'm afraid I may not actually ever find something I enjoy. So your relationship with movement might be so broken that the thought of moving is just like, it's abhorrent to you, you know? So there's that. And then there's also, I know for certain populations, like for instance, Black women, they don't want to get their hair wet. They don't want, a lot of Black women don't swim because, like, what am I gonna do with my hair? Like,
Yeah.
and the swimming caps and everything. Now there are swimming caps for Black women now, and that's a recent like
That's
event that
great.
somebody created. But I do know a lot of people who are like, I don't want to get my hair wet, I don't like sweating, that kind of thing. And I guess what I would say to that is, like, I don't want to just be kind of callous and be like, get over it. But I feel like it's the, if I have to compare like high blood pressure with sweating every once in a while, then I will sweat every once in a while. And there's something to be said for being okay with your body doing what it needs to do and your body fluids. Like, I'm a sweater. I'm a sweater because I'm also a larger person. And it's known that larger people do sweat more. And it doesn't make me nasty. I just take a shower after. Like, it's something that you have to deal with. And I think if you don't like sweat on your own body, I think there's a larger issue at play than just movement. And if you don't want to get your hair wet, I think there's a larger issue at play than just movement. And if you're thinking, what if I never find something that I enjoy? Then I think you're overthinking it, because our bodies naturally tell us when we enjoy something, right?
Yeah.
I was telling a friend the other day, like, I never have to phone a friend and be like, hey, do I like ice cream? Like,
Right.
the first time I have ice cream, I know I don't have to ask for anybody. So we were created for movement. And even when we don't try to move, we do move. So there must be some type of movement that you can do. I remember back in the day watching Richard Simmons, and when he was on right, when news outlets would profile him and they get him to work with really large clientele. And I remember there was one really large gentleman, and all he could do is clap. And that's what Richard Simmons had him do. You're just gonna clap to these songs, you know, as much as you can every day. Like, there literally is some movement that you can do, and that I hope is enjoyable, because movement should be enjoyable. I don't know if I really answered that, but I push back against the idea that there's no movement that you could find that you don't enjoy, like, whatsoever, like you can't enjoy.
And my doctor hat goes on there, but then I think, we probably need someone else on the team right now, right? Like this is where we run into a lot of accessibility issues, which it makes this step really tricky. But if your relationship with movement is so broken, just like the hunger fullness, like if some of these systems are broken, then we need to bring the right people forward to help you mend those bits. And yeah, I mean, if you really cannot seem to think of any kind of movement that would be enjoyable, and whether that's because you've got, I call her the bully, like chiming in, giving you a hard time about how that doesn't count and it's no good, and it doesn't matter if you like it, that doesn't count. Like currently my body loves skiing and stretching, and I tried to do a different kind of yoga the other day and it hurt. And it didn't hurt in the moment, but the next day, and I was laying in bed and I'm like, okay, body, I hear you. No, slow stretching is all that it wants right now. Great, I can do that, But I think if you put in that chiming narrative in the background saying that doesn't count, that's not good enough, then then we need to bring more conversation to that. We need to bring somebody else into this to help dismantle and learn how to take that voice out of the driver's seat, you know. So then I think I think you brought up a beautiful point, that if you're getting stuck that hard, you're not trying. Stop looking for a fitness instructor and start looking for, maybe it's a social worker or a psychologist or a psychotherapist or somebody who can help you understand what kind of barrier is there that needs to be removed so that you can move forward. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Movement can be triggering. Like I know there's a reason that trauma-informed yoga exists, right? So if we need to heal you're right, if you need to heal your relationship with movement, it may very well mean speaking to a therapist, psychotherapist, psychologist, and trying to unpack that.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
I was at the Body Peace conference, don't even remember when that was, sometime during COVID. And there was a panel and they were all different kinds of therapists working with eating disorders. And there was 2 or 3 movement people, and they all approached it from a different way. But it was really inspiring to hear that those types of therapists do exist, and that kind of work can be done. So if you've really disconnected from your body, that there are people who are trained to help you reconnect safely, and those people are not typically found at your local Y.
Unfortunately. And I mean, one thing I've always struggled with when it comes to mental health support is like the people who need it are typically the people who can't afford it.
Yeah.
And I've certainly been in that situation myself. So I'm not speaking from anecdotally. I've always been like, I need somebody, but I'm also not working. Yes. Right. As opposed to when you are working, you actually don't really need somebody. Right. Because it's like, oh, I have money coming in. Actually, my mental health is better. I wonder why. So I get that. But what I would say then for those individuals who are kind of in the interim and they can't access that support yet for whatever reason, is to start being mindful and paying attention to those thoughts. Right. So if you're going for a walk and it's like, this walk doesn't count, I'm going to have to go, do a boot camp class after. You have to ask yourself, well, why doesn't this walk count? I want people to start asking themselves why more. That's what I did for myself too. If you cannot go for a walk without checking your Fitbit, like if you leave your Fitbit at home and it's the end of the world, you have to now reassess movement, right?
Yes.
Because your body knows whether or not you're wearing a Fitbit, your body did do the exercise, right? But a lot of people don't think like that. They're like, unless it's on my Fitbit, it doesn't count. Yes. No, like if you, God forbid, leave your Fitbit at home and you go for a jog and you're like, okay, I need to jog again so that I could track it. You need to start thinking about your relationship to your Fitbit and to exercise.
Because that is no longer about your body and your health. Yeah. Yeah.
It's about control. And I think a lot of people go to weight loss because they want to control their bodies or they want to control their lives. So we can't control our lives. So let me try to control what's on my plate. But part of it is part of a larger ethos and philosophy, realizing that there's a lot within our control, but so much of it is outside of our control. We live in a society that tells us that if bad things happen to you, you had something to do with it, right? If you're fat, you had something to do with it. And it's just a matter of getting discipline and, calories in versus calories out. You know, you just need to up the amount of calories that you're going out and lower the calories going in, and you'll be fine. Like, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get it in. Like, I don't understand. No excuses. Whereas I like to embody the type of fitness which is like, let me work with myself. If I work against myself, that makes no sense. We're not going to get anywhere. I know that I'm not an early morning person, so I'm going to do my workouts at night. I don't see a whole lot of Instagrammers or influencers saying that, but I don't care what people are saying. I know this works for me. I also know that sleep is at the pillar of anything that I do,
Amen.
right?
Yes.
And so if I didn't, okay, I didn't work out today, but I'm tired, then what my answer is I'm going to go to bed as opposed to work out when I'm tired or sick. I used to be one of those people who were like, oh, I just have a little cold, I'm going to go to the gym. No, you need to sleep so that your body can even benefit from the exercise. And a lot of people don't realize that in the trifecta, it is sleep, then nutrition, then exercise. There are people who lose weight just by nutrition only. So exercise is actually not even needed to lose weight if that is what people are after, you know? So sleep, nutrition, then exercise. And so just working with yourself. Like, I like kale, but if you don't like kale, what about spinach? If you don't like spinach, can you put spinach in a turkey burger so that you don't taste the spinach? Can you blend the spinach in a smoothie? Could you, could you hide the spinach in your lasagna? Like, work with yourself and how you do things.
Love it. Okay. Last thing. How do I find time? I have no time. How do I make time when I'm not excited and I have no time?
We find time for the things that are important to us. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but you find time for things that you enjoy. I need not give you any more examples. Like, there are things, right? People find time. Couples who have a baby and who have not copulated in a while, they find time to have a quickie. That's where the whole idea of quickie comes from. Like, you find time. And I have never said to myself, like, rarely do I skip breakfast. Maybe more so since I'm working from home. But I've rarely gone to work and not have breakfast, because for me, eating food is so important to me. Like, I will forget something else. I'll forego, I've arrived to work with a bonnet in my hair, but I ate breakfast. So if you find something that you enjoy, the ideally is that you will be incentivized to keep doing it, and you will find time to do it. Because it's like, you'll get to the point where it's like, this is so important to me. I see how I function better and I feel better. So I'm going to have to rearrange my schedule so I can fit this in. Right.
And yeah, I mean, right now there's so many at-home options, it's one of the silver linings of COVID is that people can go onto your Instagram page and find a million different Zumba classes to play with they're not 40 minutes long, and they're like 5 or 10 minutes long, right? This is where I have a playlist that's just there. Every time I catch myself, I'm like, oop, that has to go on that playlist. Yeah. And then I'll be dancing around the kitchen while I'm cooking. I will be dancing around the house while I'm cleaning. I will be dancing around the house just because I'm like, I can't think and I'm trying to write a post and I'm like, bah, and I just, that is movement, right? It's, but it comes from something you enjoy first and foremost.
We'll find time for it.
A whole lot easier to find time for something that you actually enjoy doing. And who knows what that's going to be, right? So just keep trying stuff until something sticks. For some people, the social piece is so important, right? Like going for a walk with a friend. And at the beginning of COVID, I went for a walk every morning with a really good friend of mine. She wasn't even in this country, but we got on the phones and we walked for forever. And that was our fitness, we went and we did that, but it was about connection because that's what we needed so much in that time, right? Is it the same as walking with someone next to you? Well, no, because people don't realize you're on the phone. They stop and talk to you and you have to explain to them that you're walking with a friend. But those kinds of things are options too. The classes that you do online, do you offer them through?
Body Positive Fitness. Yes.
Perfect. I will put
So
that
that's
link in.
bodypositivefitness.ca.
Perfect.
What I was thinking when you were mentioning that is like, if you really need a place to start, if you really need somebody to say, do this, I would say walking. Because
Yes.
most of us walk or know how to walk. And now that's a really ableist thing to say, but for those who are able to walk. That's not something where it's like, oh, I wasted my time walking. It's like there are places that we need to go throughout our day. Try walking there instead. I always have a podcast going. That's the reason why I look forward to my walks, because I get to listen to my music on Spotify. I have my podcast. I can talk to a friend. I can multitask. I'm somebody who sometimes, no, but I'm somebody who sometimes feels like I'm wasting time because I could have been doing something else, right? Especially if you're doing movement that you don't enjoy. But if you're walking and you're doing something that you do enjoy, maybe that's also a way to get around, oh, I don't enjoy movement, like multitask it, or make it as comfortable as possible. So like when I was in school and I had to study, like I hate studying. People used to like kid me and be like, you probably love studying. I'm like, I hate studying. I've always hated studying. But to make it as comfortable as possible, I would have my pillows and I have my snacks and my hot chocolate, and I have my TV ready for my breaks. The best part of studying is your study breaks. And so I made studying a whole like experience. And so kind of same thing with walking. I've been doing a lot of walking like you during this pandemic. I have a friend who lives nearby. We would go on socially distanced walks. So that was cool too. But I also hate winter. Anybody who knows me knows that I hate the cold. And I mean, I'm not like I don't like walking on freezing ice and like slick sidewalks. So what did I do? I bought a treadmill from Amazon. And I look forward to walking on that treadmill as soon as January starts, or even tonight. So there's nothing that says, oh, in order for it to count, you have to go walking outside against the wind. Like you're allowed to do these things indoors. So if your budget allows for it, see if you can invest in some of those pieces indoors, right? YouTube has so much free stuff.
Yes.
In terms of courses and stuff.
You're reading my
Zumba
mind.
classes.
One of my patients, she walks in her house. And it's like, I think it's on YouTube, but it's like, it's just an indoor walking program. She like basically walks, I think Nelson Mandela, he used to run like 5 kilometers a day in his cell in one spot. Like he just ran and ran and ran and ran, but he didn't actually go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think we really need to expand our definition of movement, expand what counts, expand, and just get creative and fun and then and to circle back what you were saying before, like if you really cannot think of a single thing and you really cannot get yourself up and going, that's probably a good indication that someone else needs to be brought on the team. And then it's easy to say, not always as easy to find, but there are actually another silver lining of COVID. There are some pretty good online programs now. They're offering some of the CBT and some of the MBSR stuff online, which is nice, through, I think it's CM. I always get their acronyms wrong, but the Canadian Mental Health Association, I think was putting that one.
Because there's the Canadian Mental Health, the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and the Canadian Mental Health Association, and I always mix the two.
The acronyms get messed up in my head, but that's amazing. Yay.
Can I add just one more thing? I always am thinking like so many things. I know I have a meeting at 2:00, but so one more thing. I also want to say that I also recognize that movement can be uncomfortable and irritating for people. For instance, I don't know if anybody else has this, but I noticed that if I haven't been active over a period of time, when I have to go walking, my sciatic nerve starts to act up and I get this kind of itchy feeling in my legs. And so walking is just this horrible experience. So I would say to people like that, start really small. Walk to the end of the street and walk back. Bear the discomfort just a little bit, because as long as it's not like shooting pain, bear the discomfort a little bit, walk back. You'll see the discomfort subside as you go along and get more active. So I just want to mention that. I don't want to make it sound like movement is easy for everybody and it's like nobody had like, I know what it feels to move, and movement at the start is really, really uncomfortable and irritating. So just do a little bit, push through the irritation a little bit, and it'll get better. And if it doesn't
But
get better,
it's
see a doctor.
the difference between a stretch and pain, right?
Yeah.
So, definitely pick a goal that actually makes sense to you for where you are right now instead of a goal that is like way out there,
Exactly.
and if you hop on and you watch Simone doing some Instagram stuff, do the bits that you can and stop. The big key here is your body is the boss.
Yeah.
It will tell you what it needs and what it doesn't like. And so if you're going to start with 2 or 3 minutes, that's perfect.
Perfect. And there's nothing where I have people in my class who don't turn on their camera for Zumba. And when I used to teach in person, I used to have one guy, an elderly gentleman, he had just retired, and he'd just go like this, airplane, for the whole hour.
That's awesome.
The whole hour, right? And it's also because I tried to create a space where all movements is welcome. So you don't have to be doing the sexy salsa moves as long as you are moving, right? Perfect. That's all that matters. I tell people in my class, you could sit out. Like if I'm dancing and whatever, you're winded and you need to decompress, take a seat, drink water, turn off your camera, come back in when you're ready. Like you don't have to like be pushing yourself.
There you go. So if you need to start moving and you need a safe place, Simone has that space ready and she's waiting for you. And thank you again. I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me. And I'm glad we finally got to have this chat after stalking each other on LinkedIn and Instagram for a while. I'm glad.
Only a year. It's not so
only
bad.
A year. Yeah, it's been a year.
Amazing. All right. Thank you. Yes. Go to your meeting. I'm going to go hit the slopes and we'll talk again soon.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.